Welcome to VIP Asks the Candidates, a set of short videos where we ask the four main party candidates up for election to be Bristol's next mayor, the questions that are important to the communities we work with. In this video, we ask what they would do for Bristol's LGBTQ+ communities and get answers and hear their views on topics including the future of the city's LGBTQ+ venues, access to specialist healthcare and housing services, hate crime, and why people still don't always feel safe to be themselves in Bristol. We worked with our partner OTR to set the questions we ask in this video. Coming up, you will hear from the Conservative Party candidate, Alistair Watson, Green Party candidate, Sandy Hoare-Riven, Labour Party candidate, Marvin Rees, Liberal Democrat candidate, Caroline Gooch. Each candidate was interviewed separately, so their answers are a direct response to the questions, and they didn't get to hear what each had to say in advance. We haven't edited their responses so you can hear what they had to say in full. The Voice and Influence Partnership was set up to help make sure that individuals, groups, and communities whose voices aren't always heard or listened to are part of shaping Bristol's future. The Care Forum, who I work for, leads the project, and we also deliver its work supporting Bristol's Black and minority ethnic communities. The partnership also includes the Emma Down Centre, who lead our multi-faith work, Wessel, who are our lead for disability, OTR, who lead our LGBTQ+ work, and Bristol Older People's Forum, who lead our work for older people. We also have our advisory partners, Centre for Deaf and Hard of Hearing People, SARI, Stand Against Racism and Inequality, and VOSCA. The Voice and Influence Partnership's work is funded through Bristol City Council's Bristol Impact Fund, but we are fully independent from the council. And now on to the important part, hearing from the candidates. If you're elected to Mayor of Bristol, what will you do for Bristol's LGBTQ+ communities?
So Bristol, I think, has a proud, and I use that word both ways, a proud history of LGBT rights, and our Pride Festival every year is one of the biggest events of the year, and that's something I'm proud of. Sorry to keep using that comment, but it's something that I know many people have fought for, and it's been a long journey for certainly initially the gay community. But we are still on that journey. Trans people are some of the most vulnerable and most disadvantaged groups in our society. So there is still a long way to go. We've put in our manifesto things like having on name badges pronouns, on the council name badges, spaces for that. Being open to those conversations. I believe fundamentally somebody has the right to identify their own gender. And so again, as with other marginalised groups, it is about representation in leadership, both in the council, but in business and charities and academia too. It is about support for those groups, so making sure that they have a safe place to go to help them to both identify themselves. And again, in my day job at Creative Youth Network, we run groups that help young people to explore their sexuality and their identity, and that's a really important thing that we can fund and support. And then that peer support as they come out and act in the world in whatever way that might be, making sure that they have the support that they need, so people are recognised, celebrated, and supported.
I do struggle with the framing of that question. What will I do for? Because I think it needs to be what will you do with. If I do things for people, to me it kind of suggests a dependency, a power dynamic, and I don't want that. I want a co-working relationship, and it's my job as a leader to create the conditions in which good people who want to get good stuff done can get those good things done, and they got their own power and their own leadership. Secondly, it sounds very transactional. I'll do these three things for you, and with those three things, I'll purchase your vote. I think our politics needs to get well beyond that. It's a real problem. It's not just a consumerist relationship. So I want to do it with. But having said that, we'll continue to support Bristol Pride. We also, it's worth pointing out, we're going to continue to do the work with the Mayoral Commission on Domestic Abuse. which was obviously which included a section specifically recognising that this is also about LGBTQ plus people as well, and can impact on everyone. Not just the usual male female dynamic that people would think about. We promoted the adoption of fostering opportunities for LGBTQ plus people, launched the Bristol Equality Charter as well. We continue to enforce that. We're going to launch a piece of work specifically looking at the inequalities faced by LGBTQ plus people as well. We've done the same with race and gender, looking at the pay gap, skill for skill, hour for hour, so we have an understanding of what's going on in our city, and evidence-based understanding. We're going to do the same here as well.
I'd certainly support whatever they want to do in the city. I'm and any discrimination in that sense is totally out, just like for all the other communities. I actually love the LGBT plus communities. I've as Lord Mayor, I carried the flag around during the Pride marches. I know Darren Carter very well, and they're super for the city. So there's a two-way thing here. We are a city of tolerance, and we have great festivals. And I was pleased to hear that we're going ahead with Pride this year again, which is great, and it's going to be a wonderful festival. So again, speaking to them, one of the things I have found of being somewhat or I've spoken to quite a number of these communities. There will be different issues. The trans issue, you can't sort of lob them all into one pot. So it would as mayor, I would want to sort of talk to each of the different communities and see what we can do to help any of the issues that there might be arising. Whether that's an employment or discrimination of any sort, or even violence on the streets and whatever. So do what I can.
I think what do the communities want? I think I would want to be led by the communities themselves. So it's although I'm an ally, it's not a community that I'm part of. So I would like to know what do people need, what do they want, and just let me know. Certainly, we would definitely want to make sure that we don't have harassment, that we don't have prejudice, that people are allowed to live their lives and be themselves. And I think, obviously we've got Stephen Williams standing for Wecker, who was the first openly gay MP in Parliament, and he will be very, very keen, obviously, that we do support the LGBTQ community. So yeah, it's I'm here to support, but I need to know what the asks are, I think.
With the impact of regeneration and COVID, Bristol has already lost many of its LGBTQ plus community venues and events, places where we feel safe, can meet, dance and connect. What will you do to help save what we still have and encourage new spaces to be able to open in the city?
Well, that's a really timely question, actually, because we've just appointed Carly as our new nighttime czar, and that is all about how we shape our nighttime economy. Across the whole thing, that's going to be mix of venues and provision, the culture, safety, health, making sure the nighttime economy is for everyone as well. So we want Bristol to be a place in which families feel okay to be out until 9:30, which is good for all of us, right? Because it makes us safer. So in terms of those venues, absolutely is something that we are proactively looking at with Carly. It's also worth sharing that we have a Bristol Culture Board as well now, chaired by Lynn Barlow. We're bringing together lots of people from the cultural sector within the city to help shape our approach to culture. By that, I mean venues and events, but culture about what does it need to be Bristol as well. So they're going broader beyond that. But that would be a really important challenge to bring to that culture board, as well, to make sure we're having that diversity of provision, that diversity of entertainment, recreation within the city for all groups in Bristol. So we'll work through those two avenues.
Yes, I mean, it's part of getting the nighttime economy going again, isn't it, really? So yes, we need community venues and events. I think, yeah, it could be really good to maybe have an event on the Downs or something. Because we're having to do everything in the open air. So you know, it would be great to have some open air places, whether there are gay pubs that have outdoor venues. I don't know. I suspect that they're generally kind of city centre places. So at the moment they can't be open. So yeah, I think we probably need to sort of think about some specific outdoor venues for the summer. Would be really nice. Somewhere where we can actually get people together. Stand by the harbour side. Might be nice to have a venue. Yeah, definitely we want to encourage the nighttime economy to come back. It's been really difficult, and obviously we've lost so much, and at the moment it's very hard to go out anywhere because everywhere is booked. So it's hard for anyone to get to go out. So it's we need to sort of think out of the box a little bit as to what we can do, I think, so that we can all get out and enjoy ourselves, and that the LGBTQ community can have its safe havens where you go and be yourself without fear of getting into trouble, and connect with each other. So yeah, I think it'd be nice if we could actually see about getting an outdoor venue open somewhere.
There are two key things here. One is we are starting to recover from the pandemic, and this is not just true of LGBT venues, but venues across the board are closing now or have closed, and therefore we need to act really quickly to save them. The longer we wait, the more will close and the more difficult it will be to bounce back for all venues, I have to say. So one of the things that I want to do as part of my economic recovery plan is to celebrate the opening up of our city, and that's in high streets, that's in venues and clubs. And so I would put aside some money for the creative industries to sort of bring people back to the community, have fun, celebrate, you know, what we lost during the last year. And that's a very sort of, it's both a recognition of the importance of venues, but also it's a very practical putting a bit of money into those venues, putting a bit of money into those events, into the artists and creatives who perform there and create our amazing shows and make Bristol what the amazing and creative and fun city that it is. So that's my sort of first kind of thing that I would do, and we need to do it quickly in order to make sure that our economy and our venues and our artists recover from the pandemic and aren't lost to the city for, you know, potentially a generation. But then in the longer term, it's making sure that the planning guidance as our city changes, and we do have to build more houses and homes. We have a housing crisis in the city, but as the homes sort of surround venues, and we need to make sure that the planning laws, if those venues are already there, that they have the right to continue their licenses, their opening times, despite the encroachment of housing. So that's really important, and something I think, actually, to be fair, that this administration has already done, and I would look to continue that for the existing LGBT and all venues actually across the city.
I'm sorry to hear that, really. I mean, you know, I think most of these sorts of venues are commercially run. I still think they should be. I don't think the council should be funding, you know, venues, dance venues, and so on, even for a community, you know, that does find some hardship. I think the pink pound is pretty strong, actually, and I think that these will come back. I think what we could do in the council is just to ensure that that planning works well for that community. That, you know, if you want to start a venue, be it small or large, you know, we'd look upon it, and we'd hopefully make the right decisions and encourage it where possible.
LGBTQ plus hate crime is underreported here compared to the national average, and the full extent is still hidden. People don't feel safe to be themselves in Bristol without the risk of abuse. Why do you feel that is, and what should the city do about it?
I would want to, yeah, delve down a little bit into what the barriers are to reporting. Is it because they don't feel they're taken seriously, or is it because they feel that the police are anti them, or that the police themselves have a problem? And so that would be something, obviously, that we'd need to talk to the PCC about as well. And also, I think it could be useful, especially if we do, you know, over the summer, kind of open up and get some events going at the harbour side and on the downs, and get some new venues opened up, that it might be good to actually have not necessarily a police presence, but kind of a marshal presence, because we have COVID marshals anyway. So it might be good just for there to be somebody around that you feel that you can go to if you're being harassed, or if someone has gone there specifically to cause trouble, which I think is usually, you know, the case. You get someone who decides they want to kick off, and they go and find somewhere where they can make a pain of themselves and just harass people. I know in London on the Underground there are help points, and it might be a good idea to have some of those put in the city, certainly at the harbour side, where people are hanging out at night, and outside clubs and in clubs as well, where you can actually go and literally, you know, go and get help. So you can just press a button, and there'll be someone on the other end who can tell you somewhere safe where you can go, and who can arrange for someone to go and get help, or arrange, you know, either arrange for the police to come or something. But we also need the low-level stuff to be reported. It's like I say, women don't report the harassment that they get on a daily basis. And there are loads and loads, there's so much harassment of women in clubs. You can't go to a club without getting groped, and it's ridiculous. And if you don't respond, you know, you get a mouthful of abuse. If you do respond, it's really, really difficult. We've got to do something about this low-level abuse that certain people are subject to all the time. And I think, you know, Black Lives Matter has done something, and the Me Too movement has done something, but the LGBTQ community hasn't yet had that Me Too moment in the press where everybody's talking about the abuse that people get on a daily basis. And it's probably time we had that conversation as a country and as a city. So we need to bring it to the forefront of, you know, the kind of everyday abuse that people are getting. To be honest, everybody who's slightly different gets abuse all the time. And we've got to be addressing this in schools. This sort of bullying culture that we've got. It's not a nice trait. And I don't know if it's something specific to us as a country or what it is, but I think we don't stamp down on it in schools. Kids in schools don't report bullying, and I think it's something that we really need to get on top of. So sorry, my cats just attacked each other. So yeah, I would love to be able to do something about it, and I think we all underestimate just how big of a problem some people face daily. And yeah, I'd say that the LGBTQ plus community needs its Me Too and its Black Lives Matter moment, really. And we probably have to have a think about how that could be brought about.
I think this is a real hard nut to crack. That, you know, I think an awful lot of the discrimination and I mean, you know, now with our equality laws, you know, things are much better than they were. But it's like racism as well, that there's still a hard core of people, individuals who you know, don't feel comfortable with where we've gone as a society. Some of those may be even sort of tied to religious groups and so on. So, you know, we do really have to do our best. And again, you know, I mean, I think that the Police and Crime Commissioner, and I would work with the Police and Crime Commissioner, because I think we do have to get these reported. You know, where this is happening, it's totally wrong and must be stamped out as much as possible. People need to be made to feel that they can't do this, that it will be punished. So you know, I can't say much else than that. I don't think the city, but you know, if a campaign is needed, you know, I suppose, you know, we can always be supportive of those sorts of things with groups that require it.
I really do appreciate this, and again, I see through my day job the impact of hate crime on young people as they self-identify or you know, identify a sexuality that you know, maybe they hadn't considered as they grew up. And so I think, unfortunately, the reason is there is a fear of difference. There's a fear of having different sexualities and different genders to the one you're born with, and that's something that is part of human nature. It's not acceptable. People have the right to their own sexuality, their own identity. I don't think Bristol is particularly bad compared to other cities. I think it is probably fairly similar. But what can we do about it? You know, we can carry on celebrating that difference. We can make sure that we have safe spaces for LGBT plus people to go. We can highlight the contributions made by LGBT people to our city, not just as LGBT people, but just as general in business, in culture and planning and everything else. And then, of course, at the other end, we must enforce the law, the hate crime laws. Where there is an instance, people need to know that if they act in that way and they are perpetrators of hate crime, that they will be held to account and punished with the full force of the law. So it's celebration and safe spaces, but also making sure that those who do perpetrate it are brought to book.
I suspect, as in other situations where crimes or mistreatment are underreported, it's because people don't have faith in the institutions. And so there's a big piece of work to be done there. If it's about crimes, obviously with the Police Crime Commissioner and the police hierarchy itself, if it's reporting to the council or to the health service, all of these places, people need to have more faith in them, and those organisations have to do the work of promoting the fact that they are listening and they want to hear. So that's really important. We could also talk about setting up third-party reporting centres as well. So trusted community-based organisations can actually take these complaints and take up the challenge of feeding them in. There's a couple of other things I would probably say. I mean, I think probably people are acclimatized to it a bit as well. That doesn't mean it's acceptable. It just means, you know, this is the way the world is, and why would it be exceptional? And I don't want to steal a story here and under my butt. As a black person, I wouldn't report it every time someone abused me on the street or wrote to me and stuff. You just get used to it, and it's an unfortunate reality of life, that people that come from groups that have been historically disrespected, abused, mistreated, begin to develop the ability to carry that burden without calling it on additional help. It speaks to me to the importance of people from all our communities really coming into positions of leadership, again building confidence within the institutions, making sure those institutions work, but also building confidence in the community by having these open positions and clearly stating that you don't have to accept this. Please come forward and make sure that we have a growing record of what's going on, and taking all the measures we can to make sure that people who are perpetrators of hate crime and abuse are held accountable for their actions.
Stigma and the way society views and treats LGBTQ plus people means access to specialist healthcare, in particular for the trans community, and housing services are a big concern. What would you do as mayor to help make sure we can access the care and services we need?
I'm sorry to hear that's happening. I haven't heard of it myself. I've not been involved in healthcare or the healthcare side of things. Again, I think it's one of these ones where perhaps, if I am elected mayor, we could talk about this and find out what the very specifics are, because again, stigma and societal views, I can't do much about that. What I can do is look at, well, in housing, is that council properties? Are people getting lower on the lists? And on the healthcare side, perhaps we can speak on public health and look at what's going on there. So, come and talk to me once I'm mayor, if I am.
This is one of those really sad areas in which where the question says something we all know. We all know that these things go on, and people are discriminated against because of their identity. There's a matter of course. This is one of the, I think the first point we've often used in the city over the last few years is to get that baseline understanding with that hard evidence. So it's not just about me and what I think I can do with the council, but actually we take this to the city office. So I think that, I've talked about earlier, about getting a baseline understanding of the level of discrimination and how it maps itself onto the city faced by LGBTQ plus people. And I think that, to me, that will be the real launch pad. We did this around the pay gaps along gender and race. We've looked at mental health, but this would be important. And we can do all sorts of things with that once we got the information. One is we can show the unfairness of the situation. Here are some numbers, but also we can also talk about the consequences of that. So when I talk about inequality and poverty, I'm saying let's tackle it because it's the right thing to do. But also, if you don't, it costs you lots of money, right? Because people get more sick, they're more likely to end up on public services, which cost us all, which cost the city money as well. So do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because it's in light and self-interest. But I think getting that baseline understanding of what is actually going on with the evidence would be step number one. Outside of that, we do have some things happening right now. We have words do matter. It's dangerous if they remain words, but they do matter. But the Bristol Equality Charter that we've been getting organisations to sign up to is a commitment to organisations that shape the city operating in a way that that is fair to all and open and accessible to all. And so there is a way through which we can hold people accountable and hold our key institutions across health and so forth accountable to those, to the standards that they've signed up to in that equality charter and within their own organisations, their own equalities policies. So where organisations are falling short, and we do actually have a public sector equalities group looking at all the public sector organisations where they're falling short, please bring those cases to us. I would say report it to them, but you can bring them to us if you want to, and then we can feed those particular cases into those organisations so they begin to get the evidence fed into them that the way they're working is falling short of the standards that they've publicly signed up to perform at.
I do understand the barriers that LGBTQ plus people face, anything from housing to accessing mental health services and the like. I think the key here is partnership between the council and healthcare services, and that's a sort of two-way thing. That's making sure that our council teams are trained to support LGBTQ plus, that they understand some of the very specific barriers or challenges that they might face. So that might be in housing services, youth services, older people's care, and the range of council services that are on offer. But then also that there is that partnership, so that the council services can recognise where there's an issue, support, because obviously the NHS does the specific healthcare services, those any sort of medical support that people need. So it's really important that we work in partnership, that our healthcare partners and NHS partners have the same training, have the same understanding, and that there are those links between council services and NHS services to make sure that they're as seamless as possible, that they're as barrier free as possible, to make sure that LGBTQ plus people get the healthcare support that they need, whether that's in mental health or whatever.
The problem is that, yeah, access to housing is just a huge problem. Access to affordable housing is just a huge problem. So there's various things that we want to do to help relieve some of the pressure, so that it's just not so difficult for everybody. One of those is that we would like to stop the right to buy scheme. They've stopped it in Scotland and stopped it in Wales, because it's taking affordable and social rented houses out of the council's control faster than they're getting built. So, and then we want to build more council houses as well. So we need to be stopping selling them and building more, so that there's actually that stock of council housing available. So we've got a 30-year loss of council homes, so we need to start building that capacity back up again. And then when we build, I think the idea would be to basically get the council to build 2,000 homes. You'd sell half into the private sector. That gives you the money to cover the cost that you borrowed to build, and then you keep the rest for social rented. So that's the kind of the idea behind that. The other thing is to try and get the universities to house all their students themselves, so that they should be building a lot more purpose-built student accommodation, so that students aren't taking up all of the HMOs, so that there's a lot more stock available for non-students, and a lot more housing stock for families as well. Because the amount that the students end up paying as a whole is out of the reach of a lot of people. So I saw a house recently that has something like eight students in it. It's a terraced house in Eastville, had about 8 students in it, and was going for the price of a family home, but the rent came to £60,000 a year for all of those students, and families can't afford that, and certainly it's more expensive than most sharers who aren't students can afford. I think that the prices, I don't understand how the students are affording to pay these prices, but they are pushing the prices up. So if we could get the universities to take responsibility for their numbers, then that would help. And then the other thing is what about the LGBTQ plus community themselves? I think we need to, we want to have bring in a good renter scheme, so that you could come as a kind with like with a reference from the council saying this person's a good renter, they always pay their rent on time, etc. They've never caused any trouble. So that would be helpful for helping get homes. But also I think we need to put, if people are being made homeless because of harassment in their housing, that needs to be taken seriously. It shouldn't be the case that it's not seen as a dangerous situation to be in. It's very dangerous for your mental health, and it could become dangerous for you physically as well. And so it should be taken seriously by the housing associations. But I think the problem is that there are just, the list is so long of people waiting for housing, and the need is so urgent. We can also repurpose and retrofit buildings and offices, etc., to make more housing. And I think we need to get a grip on kind of an emergency housing solution for people who urgently need to move. And I think those, and anything where we can quickly build, even if it's just temporary accommodation, so we can get people out of dangerous situations, is very urgent. Yeah, and also, I mean, I definitely wouldn't brush that under the carpet. I mean, I've got a friend who had to leave his country because he was gay, because it was dangerous to be gay in his country. And it's a real and frightening situation to be in. So I think, yeah, we need to take it seriously, and we need to have much better provision for people who urgently need to get out of the situation that they're in, because yeah, it has a really bad effect on your mental health if you're struggling. So fully understand. I don't know what the answer is, other than we need more places for people to live desperately.
Thank you to our VIP citizen members and the communities we work with for your involvement and questions, and to the candidates for taking part.